Rural Heritage on RFD TV is brought to you by Rural Heritage Magazine, a bi-monthly magazine featuring articles about farming and logging with draft animal power, small-scale diversified family farming and homesteading, and other aspects of our rich rural heritage. Rural Heritage Magazine, borrowing from yesterday to do the work of today. For subscription information, please call 319-362-3027 or order online at www.ruralheritage.com.
We're in the middle of a barn renovation. We sold the sheep to mostly finance this project, and we're taking what used to be our wintertime bedding area for the sheep and cattle, and I'm going to change it into 3 box stalls for mares, foaling mares or young stock, weaning time, a place for the stallion occasionally, or visiting mares. We weren't really set up good for that, and hopefully this will take care of that problem. The idea is to have 3 10 by 16 box stalls. That size is what we have, so we're going to go with it. Anyways, we decided to make this change to the barn, and to make that happen, we sold our flock of sheep, like I said. And what kind of started this whole thing was I had to renovate the hay mow. We built the barn 21 years ago. We used OSB board to keep to make so that the hay chaff and that didn't fall down on the horses, so it's like a tongue and groove. It was still a good choice, but over the years, moisture and stuff has started to affect the floor. I didn't want to fall through it, so we put a 1-inch hardwood over top of what's there already. So now I'm sure it'll outlast me, and that's the goal anyways. But when that happened, I decided, well, geez, I never used this other end. I should put a window in, take the door out, and the doors on the end of the barn to put the round bales in aren't quite big enough. So then I said, well, if we're going to renovate the barn, I don't want to change the footprint necessarily, but I can reutilize the space to be more functional for us. So that's what we wound up doing. I like my center aisle. I didn't want that to change. And if I put horses out there, I want them to individual. So the stall fronts will be in this part here with doors. There'll be 3 doors, 4-foot doors to let the horses in and out. And the nice thing is we're going with mesh for airflow and visibility, light, all those things. The door on the end, which is kind of the southeast end of the barn, it'll have rolling doors and a mesh door, so it can be opened or closed depending on the weather. And again, light, airflow, all those things. Our horses don't spend a lot of time in their stalls, no matter if it's tie stalls or box stalls, but when they're here, we want them to be as comfortable as we can make it, and as efficient for me to be able to make things. I don't want to spend all afternoon cleaning manure. I want it to be easy. We're going to pour some cement out there to bring the floors up to the same level as inside here. Two reasons. I want to make sure I don't get moisture in there. That as far as I know, it's not a problem right now, but it has been in the past once or twice with a really big rain. So I don't want that issue. So we're going to raise the floor 3 inches. That makes it even with this floor. I know there's no issue after that. And most of what we do, we try to use our own wood when we can. This year the sawmills are extremely busy because of post-COVID, the economy's opening up and everybody's very busy, so they don't want to stop to do a little bit of custom work when they're doing their own work. So I actually bought quite a bit of the hardwood that we're going to use. I bought some conventional lumber to make the tie-in, the transition just look better and be a little bit easier. If I was sawing my own wood, I would have just had it sawn to conventional dimension, and then you get the benefit of both. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. But the other thing is it's not a huge amount of lumber. At this point, I think in lumber, I was $610 in the hardwood and just over $1,200 in the conventional, but that does include the treated. And when you figure the price of lumber is almost 300% increase, I'm satisfied that at least we had the hardwood to help out. A friend of mine who runs a fab shop, the guy who built my dump wagon, he will be making the stall grid and the doors and everything for me. So as soon as we have this framed in, which is supposed to happen by the end of the week, then I can give him dimensions and he can get started on the steel work. In this section here, I'll have an 8-foot door, mesh door, but it'll also have a split slider that covers it, so in the wintertime or foul weather I can close it. But summertime I can throw it open so we get maximum airflow through. Each stall will have a window, 2x6 window. On the end there'll be 2x4 windows, so this kind of faces the south and east, so we get good light in here all the time. We also get bad east storms, so this way that takes that out of the equation by having this all closed in, but yet still open when we want it to be. Each stall division will be also made out of mesh and steel, so it's safe for the horses and allows for air movement. We're not going to do anything with the ceiling, and if you look up close, airflow runs up and out the top, and that's why the cupola is in the top of the barn. It helps keep the air moving. I think that's one. I don't have hardly any condensation on my steel, and I'm sure that a lot of that is because of the air movement. The moisture that I got in my hay mow came from if the door got left open on the end, or where the cupola is, it's screened up there and louvered. So when the wind and snow blows just right, it does accumulate up there. It's not always, it's just sometimes, but then that gets in the hay chaff, and after 21 years, it started to make a little bit of a difference. Not enough of a difference that I'm going to change any of that, because I think it doesn't warrant it. And you can see, you know, I took the boards off the wall over here behind you, Joe, and all that really is just to get an idea what it's going to look like. But that will all be open, and where the big openings are, those will be where the doors are. The block's been cut out, and that will all come off.
All right, so there's going to be 3 stalls.
Yes.
And this is the full depth is going to be the stall?
Yes, from here, this is the outside wall to the inside wall. And these posts are at 10 feet, so from here to the end wall, this post to that post. So there'll be nice, big, roomy stalls. Like I said, I wanted very deep, 16 foot deep, or just, I mean, the outside dimension is 16, so very close to that. I think I'm going to go with a rubber matting for the flooring. There are companies now that make pretty good products, and like everything, they're a little bit inexpensive, but it's a one-time deal, we hope. So I know the two companies I was looking at last night, they're warranted for 15 years. So that's a pretty good warranty on anything these days.
If you enjoy seeing how our ancestors lived during America's rural yesterday, you're going to love looking at these books. Volume 1 is fieldwork showing horses and vintage tractors preparing seed beds, planting, cultivating, and harvesting the crop. Volume 2 shows the work being done in the barn and farmyard, feeding and watering the livestock, getting the crop into the barn, milking the cows, shearing the sheep, and collecting the eggs. In Volume 3, we go inside the home to see the family in the kitchen canning vegetables, in the parlor listening to the radio, and in the dining room for family supper. We also head into town to shop at the general store or visit on the town square on Saturday night. Each book has over 140 large format pages. They sell for $24.95 each, or you can buy 2 for $44.95, or all 3 for $54.95 plus shipping. Call 1-877-647-2452 to order. That's 1-877-647-2452.
And I'm no lack for projects. I just took on this new idea 206 manure spreader for a project. It's usually a 2-wheel spreader, but the previous owner had put a front end under it, and I wanted something that made a lot of racket and for the colts to get trained on. Also, it's a good thing in the wintertime. I can do January, February, right before sugaring, to get the horses a little bit toughened up. Mostly I'd be spreading compost. I mean, even some fresh manure probably, but I would spread in places where I have plenty of buffer around, not to have to worry about water running off. But I think it's good. The ground drive manure spreaders make a little bit of noise. They fling the poop out the back, so the horses see that. A lot of them, they couldn't care less. Other ones are a little bit spooked by it. Either way, it's a good educational tool, and I think if we have a barn full of horses, it'd be kind of fun just to clean it out in the wintertime when there's not a lot of other work for them to do. So it helps justify keeping them.
And do you know how many bushels this one is?
I want to say I should look it up. I have the book inside, but I want to say it's close to 80. So it has a slop gate in this one because it came off a dairy farm.
And was that looks like it's original, but it's an add-on?
I think it's an option.
Okay.
So it's
right.
What they did, they made a ratcheting system here. So from the driver's seat, you could actually raise this up or put it down. It's actually kind of handy because as it comes up and over, oops, sorry about that.
No worries.
But that keeps the manure from getting up against the beaters. So it's, I don't know, I think it's a perfect thing. It's going to work out good for us, even with the dry manure, because it's not going to let it scatter all over the barn. Compost happens too, and with it keeping out of the beaters, when you put it the manure spreader in drive, they don't have to push really hard just to get it going. You have a little bit of space for the beaters to spin, and then start pushing the web into it.
You don't spill any manure in your driveway if you're going.
Well, that's the hope.
So, wow. This is the ratchet.
Yes, it came up here. I mean, like I said, it's a little bit of a project, but you would sit on the seat and do what I did with the crank, and that would raise that up so you didn't have to get off. For me, I like my colts to have to stand and do stuff, and so I'll probably get off, hold the lines in my hands, go back there and run the crank. But this would be a nice option especially if you think about it being dairy manure. It's very wet. So by the time you got off and got back there and raised that thing, climbed back up here, now it's all against the beaters, where we won't have that problem. But I still think whoever came up with it was a very good idea. There was obviously some innovation. And like I said, the whole front end was built because it was a tractor-drawn spreader. So a few things I have to fix on it now, but I should have it running before summer just to give it a good tryout. For sure we'll have it to train these colts that we're working on right now. It's just one more thing to expose them to. So getting back to part of the reason why we wanted to make this renovation was we don't need the loafing shed as two things. We have less beef now. We're just raising beef mostly for our family. We do sell some ground beef, but mostly it's just for us. And I used the sheep, we had a flock of sheep, of 40 ewes and a ram, and I used them to help finance this project. Now, certainly that won't cover all of it, but by doing the work myself and having some really good friends, using hardwood lumber where applicable, it's going to keep the costs down, way down. Like I told you, the most expensive part of the project so far was the conventional lumber we had to buy. You can see the steel packages here to close in the building and all that kind of stuff. So getting rid of the sheep was a decision we made because my farm is kind of based on animal units. So to know the carrying capacity of your farm, it's good to divide it in your head at least in animal units. An animal unit is a cow equals 5 sheep, a horse equals 5 sheep. By dividing the farm in animal units, you have like 5 sheep equals 1 acre of land. If you had a bull or a stallion, they're going to eat like 7 sheep, the same amount that 7 sheep would eat. So it's like 1.5. And again, it depends on your farm, but as you get used to it and know it better, you should be able to figure out how that's working for you. So for us, that's what it works out here is 5 to 1, so to speak. So with 40 sheep gone, that is potentially could have 8 more horses without changing the amount of pasture we need or the amount of hay we make. Now, obviously, weather affects those things, but it still gives you a baseline. So, and the other thing that kind of played in was I'm retired. I really enjoy the horses more than even the sheep. And so I'd like to focus on them, and especially since I haven't gotten into the Suffolks, I want to do everything I can do to preserve and promote this breed. They deserve it. They truly do. I've explained this. It's hard to find help to put up small bales of hay. So several years ago, we made the choice that we're just going to make round bales. And then I discovered that I could put round bales in my upstairs hay mow with a skid steer. But if you look close, you can see between bifocals and not quite being enough reach, I've about destroyed this door. So my plan is we've fixed the floor. I'm going to replace and fix all this damage I did out here. And then I'm going to make a kind of a rack deal that will be bolted down to the haymow floor and stick out this way at an angle. So all I have to do is drive up and set the bale on that rack, and then the next bale pushes the first bale in. So then I just need someone upstairs to roll the hay around where it goes. And when we get all done, the very last bale, we'll push in the last bale. I'll take the bale that's sitting out here off, and that rack will fold up against itself and the doors close. That's my hope. Obviously right now it's just on paper, but so far my prototypes have somewhat worked. This apparatus that I'm hooking up to here is an invention for 2021. I needed a way to get my sap out of the woods, and Amy being kind of heavy and full, I wanted to give them as much advantage as I could for not having the extra weight. Step up here, girl. So by using a kind of a hybrid vehicle with wheels in the back and the sled runners in the front, it worked out fantastic. But the best part of all, my grandfather had a vehicle like this, and I really don't remember all the details, but I'm going to give him all the credit, because as a child I remember riding in that, on that thing, gathering sap out through the woods in the mud and the snow. And in my book I actually wrote a story about standing on the back of the sled and having to pee as a little boy, and wound up getting baptized in a big way. It's kind of a humorous thing that happened. I know my grandfather probably still laughing about it, so I'm sure it made him giggle. But having said that, I can see now why he did it. When you have just one team of horses and a huge amount of sap to get, and they're in their winter coats, and like this year the woods was extremely dry. You have a 7-barrel gathering tank, and so at 8 pounds a gallon, you can figure that out. It's like 210 gallons times 8, so you're 1,600 pounds plus just in the sap. Then me, the sled or whatever they're pulling it in, and so this made a terrific deal. When you look at it, it looks a little funky because we turned the axle upside down in the back. The thought was that it would make it easy to get on and off for putting sap on, which didn't seem to matter because the tank's low enough we can reach it from the side anyways. But the cool thing about it, and it was kind of an unexpected thing, is no matter where I land on my unloading hill, which if you can turn, Joe, and see the end of the sugar house, no matter where I land on my unloading hill, the tank is always pointed down, so I get it empty every single time, which of course you want to empty the sap out, but the most important time is that last part of the day when, if you don't get it all out, now you have the potential to freeze in that tank. And I also want the tank emptied and rinsed out before we gather it the second time. It's set up so that it has a fifth wheel like attachment underneath the bobsled. So the fifth wheel gives you a turning radius that's almost in its own footprint. I kind of got the idea from the dump wagon that we use, but it works out extremely well. The other thing I did is I put high density plastic on the bottom of the runner on the wood. So the high density plastic makes it slide super easy, and it's very wear resistant. I can step the horses up and I can see it. Okay. It's very wear resistant, so I'm thinking I'll get 3 years out of that. It cost me $75 for the 2 pieces of plastic, which seems extreme, but if all I have to do is replace the plastic every 3 years and the sled continues to last, I'm pretty impressed. This is the sled. Some of our viewers may remember I had a long-tailed sap sled that I used and really liked that sled. I'm not even gonna compare the two because it's both of them have different jobs, but the main thing is the wheelbase is longer, so you don't get your face washed every time you're going through the woods with a load of sap. And I'm just gonna take this out and make a couple loops to show you how maneuverable it is. And I'm kind of excited because it works so well. Jeep, quit, Jeep, easy, Jeep, Whoop, gee. And you can see even on the gravel it slides very nice. It's extremely handle, and it's no load for the horses. There's just a tiny bit of friction, but it pulls really easy. Come on. Easy. Easy. Easy, Ab. Easy. Atta girl. Easy, girl. Whoa. They didn't exactly like that because they can't figure out where we're going. They do love their routine.
A prolific writer and storyteller, Ralph has been a frequent contributor to Rural Heritage magazine and other publications. He put a collection of some of his best essays in a book he calls Cultivating Memories, which we are proud to include in our catalog. You can get yours by calling 1-877-647-2452 or visiting www.ruralheritage.com. It makes a great gift.
Abby, back. Ha back. Whoa. If you notice, when they came out, they stepped up to the tongue, they one-stepped across, and now they're waiting on me. And it doesn't hurt anything to make them wait a minute. I mean, unless you're in a giant hurry, anything you do to reinforce what they're doing, back up, Chris, is a good thing. And this is something I started doing. And I started doing it because a friend on Facebook had a very unfortunate accident when his neck yoke slipped off the end of the tongue. And it resulted in a bad accident for him. He was in the hospital a few days, and thankfully he survived it. And I always thought it was kind of an overkill thing, but I wouldn't want Jake and my grandchildren to jump on something and hitch wrong and have that problem happen. And it could happen extremely easy. So, after my friend Brian got hurt, even though I have the safety catch on my tongue, which is, you always would think would be plenty, I still add an extra step. It only takes a second. And like I said, when I'm an old man, and this seemed like a silly thing to be doing, but I'm telling you, after seeing what happened to Brian and thinking about what could happen to us, it just takes a minute. It's no big deal. And all this is a hame strap, so it's plenty tough enough to do the job. And if I wasn't all thumbs, it's actually fairly quick. So I'm just through the ring. The tongue and the neck yoke's going to work like it always did. It's just there in case, God forbid, something crazy happens and it slips off. So it's just a tiny little safety feature that takes 2 seconds. Well, 15 maybe. Go girl.
Thanks for joining us today at Rural Heritage and RFD TV, where we borrow from yesterday to do the work of today. This program is available for purchase. To order your copy, please call 319-362-3027 or visit www.ruralheritage.com. Rural Heritage is a bi-monthly magazine dedicated to draft animal farming and logging, as well as other aspects of our rich rural heritage. It is published by Mishka Press, which also offers a complete line of back-to-the-land books, DVDs, and calendars. Call or write for a catalog or subscription information, or visit our website at www.ruralheritage.com.